You so much. Oh, guys, isn't church fun? I love it. The seminar was great this weekend. Had a lot of fun. Sometimes when I hear old stories and, other old stories just gonna come back to. And, uh, and as I was praying about today, I felt like God keeps saying things to me, but I was like, You're saying a lot of things, and I'm like, I'm supposed to give one message, and it's getting a little hard. And I feel like He's just so excited to talk to us in the season. And I love the seasons where you feel like He's just speaking. And I was just parking here at church, and I was thinking about the fear of God. And I had this picture, and I saw this beautiful garden, and I saw this fence that it was like an amazing fence all around the garden. And He said the fear of God is the fence that takes care of the garden. And I knew that He's talking about it was the garden of our heart. It's the garden of our heart. And I don't know what you have heard about the fear of God, but I know so many people have different ideas about what that is. But the reality is that the fear of God is that place in you that creates a safe environment for God to bring all the beautiful things that He's put inside of you. It's the thing that protects the garden from all the little creatures, from the foxes, from everything that wants to come and spoil the beautiful things that God's growing inside of you. And there's two things that kept me from like just going crazy when I was growing up, because I grew up in the church, but I never went through like a rebellious season. I've always loved God, and I did some things were not the smartest things to do, but I had never walked away from Him, or I never did anything too crazy in a bad way, because two things actually. I hated shame. And I hated the way that shame felt, and I knew that if I didn't listen to that conviction, and when I think about the fear of God, I think about that conviction that comes when you know that something's just not right, or that you're about to do something that is not okay to do, that it's a violation of love. It's something that you shouldn't do, and it's that conviction, and that conviction kept me from really doing things that I wouldn't regret. So it was just the fact that I knew that shame, I hated the feeling of shame, and also I didn't want to bring things into my life that was going to create a division. It was going to create something to block me from experiencing God. And so I had that picture. And so many times I think God just gives us pictures like that because it helps us understand, like, why is the fear of God important? I feel like we're in a time that the fear of God is extremely important. We need the fear of God in our lives. God, so many times I felt like the stuff starts to grow, but then it gets spoiled. And the enemy, many times, he waits until there's actually... We go through all these things, and we work hard to get some of these beautiful things to come out, but because we didn't surround ourselves the right way, we were not settled in Him the right way. The enemy came and just took off some of that fruit, or destroyed some of those pretty flowers that God was growing inside of you. It reminded me of right after that I was reminded of this dream I had a long time ago, and I was actually 22 years old when I had this dream. And the dream was about the house I grew up, that I was on 222. That was the address of the house. And the house, we lived there for about 10 years. And it was a rental house, but it was in the city. What we loved about this house was that it was full of trees. And, if you've been in other countries, a lot of the houses, they have walls all around for security. And so there's a gate and then walls all around. And God reminded me of this dream. And in this dream, the Heavenly Father was talking to me, but He looked like my natural father in my dream. and he's talking to me. And then sometimes he will change into another spiritual leader that I admire. But he was still the Father talking to me. He was not that person. And then at the time, I was living in Kansas City, so sometimes it will change to my pickle because he was one of the spiritual people in my life at the time. And so, so I'm having this dream, and in the dream, he's speaking and he's saying, it's like we have to trim some of these branches. We have to cut these things over here and that over there. And there's like all this trimming. And even in my dream, I'm a little bit like, oh shoot, like I love the trees. I love the branches. I'm like, why are we cutting these branches, But I knew it was important. And he said, we have to do it because, because I'm bringing my glory. And as he said that, this cloud just started to fill this garden. This whole garden, and it was this beautiful glory, and I just keep feeling the heart of the Father, His love and His presence, and it was so thick, and it was amazing. One of those good dreams. And so God reminded me of that dream. I haven't think about that dream in a long time, and but in this picture, it was the way He reminded it to me. It was I saw Him come through the gate, and He went and He made sure that He closed the door well. It was like He didn't want and it was almost like if the presence could go out, and that's what I was like. He would say, like, I'm talking about the heart, because He wants the glory to fill the earth, right? Like He wants the glory to fill the earth. We know that, but He wants to start by really creating this safe place in our heart, so He can actually fill us with His glory first, and through us, He's going to fill the whole earth with His glory, And then in that, I want to say some things. I as a little kid, I always admire my dad and my mom a lot. And when you're little and your parents are your heroes, and they, and your dad is, I remember my dad. He was always, when you're little, you see your dad, and he's so tall. He's actually taller than me, but when you're little, you're like, he's so big, you're like, and then you almost, and I had amazing parents growing up, and so to me, they were almost perfect. And then you start growing up, and we were seeing God move and do amazing things. And I watched my dad and my mom over and over just loving people in an incredible way, in a sacrificial way. And actually, I learned to love the church because of them. Like it was, I watched them love the church, and it was to me, I've always, even when I didn't want to love the church, I loved the church. Because of how they showed me this constant, this devotion to loving the church. And they always talked about it as like, He loves it. He loves us. We are the church. We can't hate each other. We can't hate our own body, And they were always, and that was something that I learned from them. But as I was growing up, I realized, man, there are some things in there. They were a part of this denomination that there are some things that I was like, I don't know about that. And so the way I did a lot of things was I was always checking on conviction. I decided that I wanted conviction to be very present in my life. And the way you do that is that you pay attention to it. And when you get conviction, you actually follow what God is telling you to do. You're obedient, and you stop yourself. You change plans if you need to change plans. And if you want to have conviction in your life, you want to do that a lot. Because if not, we can kind of, it becomes like the conviction is less and less the more we ignore it. And so you want to pay attention to it. But so this is what I will do. So I didn't do like super stupid things because I had conviction. But there was things like, that I didn't feel right to me. Like one of the things was, the presence of God will be in the service, but the only way you can jump is like this, And I was like, I know I was made for more than that, And so I remember this one time there was an opportunity where one of my friends goes like, hey, we're practicing for this show that the school is going to put, and I'm 14 years old. We're going to do this show. It's going to be amazing. It's all about the 60s, and it's going to be fun. At 14, you're still like, is it going to be cool or not? Because we care about what people think of us when we are 14 a lot, and you're just kind of in that space. And this friend of mine, she's like, you're going to love it. Just come to one class, and it's during class. So you're going to miss class, and everybody's okay with it. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so I went there, and did the one day, the one practice, and I loved it. And so But I didn't tell my parents because I knew they were going to tell me, no, you can't do that. Because they, you know, like it was not Christian music, and it was other type of dancing. And I knew that in the way of thinking at that time, they were still not cool with it. And so, but I stepped into the class and I was like, God, like, are we okay here? You know, and even that I was not telling my parents, but I was still going to like, I want to make sure that I'm okay with you right here, that you're okay with me right here. And I was like, oh, there's no conviction about it. I'm going to do it, you know. So I start doing this. I don't suggest that you do this in a lot of areas of your life. I was 14 years old, and you know, you do a lot of things that you will never do later on in life. And so, but what I'm saying was, I did this, and we practiced for like 6 months. We were gonna do this dance at this theater. It was this big deal, and so I didn't tell my parents that I was doing this until like the week off. And my dad was on a trip in Argentina, and this is when you can't just call him and like, you know, there's no easy access or anything like that. But I know my dad and my mom were in the same space, so I just thought, well, maybe, you know, I'm like, okay, so also by the way, you know, I'm a part of this performance that we're gonna perform here. I think you should come check it out, you know. And my mom was like, what? You never asked permission to do this? And I'm like, yeah, you know, but I mean, it's going to be fun. You're going to love it. And she's like, no, you can't do it, you know. And I was like, really? And she's like, no. And so I was like, oh, shoot, you know, because I had a partner, right, like the girl that I'm dancing with, you know. And so the problem was that my partner was the daughter of the colonel who had the connection about this theater. And that's what we were using this whole theater for free so the school can have this performance. And so guys, it was it became this problem, right? The day of the dance, the principal was calling my mom, like, hey, I don't know what your son did, you know, because I was like the only like non-Christian in my school. Like all the other Christians were like secret Christians. So there was not a lot of them. There was not a lot of them, but there was, I think, a few. And so they didn't understand why I was not going to perform. And so they were like, I don't know what your son did, but just ground him for 6 months doing something else. But let him come to this thing, you know, like the girls has her hair done and it's crying. And the guy who gave us the theater is like angry and, you know, can you please? So she's talking to my sisters, and she just sat down talking to my sisters. And my sister was like, Mom, seriously? Just let him go down. Let's go watch him do his dance, you know? And so she's like, okay. And so I did the dance, right? So my mom came, watched me, and my mom loved it. You know, she loved it. And she was a dancer. She grew up as a dancer, you know? You know, I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes we grow up and we are part of something. And because God is in the midst, and there's beautiful things that happen, and your heart becomes alive in that place. You get healing, you get all these things. But at the same time, in that same space, there's a mixture about what people think and believe about random things that God is not really worried about. And because it's there and it's all mixed in, you just take it all. And then you're like, I guess we're not dancing like that, you know, and whatever. And but God wants to prune some things out of our life. There's some things that we're doing that are very silly, and there's some things that we're thinking we don't have the whole picture in some areas. And so actually, you know what? My mom, after that, she taught me how to tango. And you know, because I had learned a lot of dances by that time, I was like, you know, I've been dancing for a long time. I was like, I didn't have conviction about dancing, so I've been dancing. But I didn't know how to tango, and she knew how to tango, and we had this whole like mother and son moment in time of like, my mom taught me how to tango, and you know, and that's sweet, right? And so, you know, it was probably not completely even a great idea that she taught me how to tango. I was still 14. I was like, I probably should have waited a little longer to you know, teach me that, but you know what? But you know what I'm saying. And oh yeah, you know, the thing too is, I realized it hit me that day too, like the day of the performance. I was like, I can't believe I practiced for 6 months and I didn't think about this girl that was going to pay the price, for just me not, just not thinking right. And, we're paying the price for not thinking right as a church, right? It's not just, we're not the only one who are affected. And so I feel like God is renewing, when I had that dream, I felt like God said, like, there's a lot of things that I want to change in you. And he's been doing this for a long time. He's constantly challenging me. And so I have to keep my ears and my eyes open to hear wisdom, and to hear wisdom from many places. And obviously, I take more serious the people that I trust and the people that I have more relationship. And, but, I'm going to tell you another example. I'm not going to tell you that example. I'll change my mind. Some days you got to follow the Lord. You're like, okay, no, he doesn't want me to share that one. But, I realize that God many times we get a little piece of his heart. And it's not because he gave us his heart in pieces. You guys, we sing the song. Like, he gives us the whole thing, right? He doesn't give his heart in pieces. But his heart is so huge that sometimes we just get to understand and see a little piece of it. And then somebody else gets the other piece somewhere else. And so we have to stay teachable. We have to stay humble. I talked about, I had that dream at the beginning of the year. It was the sword of the two swords. I was holding the two swords, and it was humility and favor. When I think about that, if you want to hold it, if you want to keep it, you have to hold both things. And that, to me, that favor is really like walking out of a place of anointing, walking in that connection with God, walking with the glory and the presence of God in your life and through your life. And that's what we're made. That's what we're made for. We were made and designed by God to be connected to him that way. And I don't know why my thing is turning off. It's not supposed to. But I realized that it came to a time, depending on the season, sometimes we get really excited about some things. And when I had that dream, I was living in Kansas City. And so prayer was very important, and prayer is still very important in my life. But there was a few things that completely I was like, God, like, he's like, I've called you to this and this and that, You're not going to just be here in this prayer room for the rest of your life. And I was like, really? Because it sounds like this is like the most holy thing to do right now. And God is like, no, And I love Jermaine's shirt that he said, faith moves, And so faith is dead without actions. And so and so when I started thinking about that. But many times we start, depending on what we're excited, we think weird things like, well, are you going to be Martha or are you going to be Mary? And it's like, if you're Mary, you're going to be in the prayer room. If you're Martha, you're going to be doing the other things of the kingdom, but it's not as holy as Mary. And the reality, that was not the point. The point was, Mary was hungry for connection with Jesus, and that was her number one thing. You can have that same hunger and that same connection and be feeding the poor somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You can have that same connection and that same hunger and go into an addition, right? So it doesn't matter where you are. It's like, are you really about that connection with him? And if you want to protect that connection, you need the fear of the Lord to surround your garden. So the presence of God can just grow everything that is supposed to grow inside of you, and you can be the full, free version of who you're supposed to be. There's something that's precious to my heart, and I completely disagree with my dad about it. And that's really, really hard. But because of that, it will be foolish of me to close my heart towards my dad because I disagree on something. And we do that all the time. Somebody said something in Facebook, go, oh, I used to love that person, not anymore. That's what we do. Everybody's a human. Everybody's going to make mistakes. There's nobody too holy. Everybody sees a piece of his heart because his heart is way too big. And part of humility is we need community. We need people. Even when Sean talked about this weekend, when he will get revelation, we will talk about some of those things because sometimes it felt like what we were getting of that revelation maybe needed a little more balance. And so we do it. We have to be teachable even in the process and everything. If I should be a different person today than I was a year ago. There's some things that I can't be the same person because we're supposed to be going from glory to glory and experiencing his heart more and more. And so, but I feel like we do that many times. So every time somebody that I respect tells me something that even if it sounds a little like completely or opposite or I just never even think about it, like I pay attention to it and I bring it to the Father. And I was like, God, like, what are we doing about this? Like, what is this about? And being teachable. Okay. In first service, I only touched like 20% of what I thought I was going to touch about. So we'll see how we do this on this one. I want to go to Luke 9. Luke chapter 9. And, when I say we're not supposed to, the option wasn't Martha or Mary. The only one we're supposed to really follow is Jesus. Like his life is the most whole picture of what our life needs to look like. And so I want to challenge you to really go and just over and over and just look at his life, study his life, the way he talks, the way he says things. You know what I love about Jesus? He's fully justice, but he's fully kindness. Have you ever talked to somebody who has a justice heart but is angry? Or bitter? It's even hard to hear what they're saying. It's like, yeah, 100%, I get it. Like, yeah, that's a bad thing, but it's like you're angry, you're bitter about it. And the amazing thing about Jesus is that, I've been saying this, but he's unoffendable, and his heart is just so kind. But at the same time, he's fully justice, and I love that. Well, we'll see how we do here. Luke 9. And I'm just going to go over some of this. We're not going to read the whole thing because I've been thinking about this whole chapter, and I want you to go home and read the whole chapter and just look at him. Look at the way that he responds every time. But here in the beginning, we see that Jesus gives his disciples authority. And so he gives them authority, and they go, to heal the sick and cast out demons and all that stuff. And he gives them authority. There was a time that I heard somebody that is like, you have to build your authority and things like that. The reality is that you don't. Like, he already gave you the authority, but the mixture inside of you will block you from move out of that place of authority that God already gave you. So what we need to do is like get some of that pruning to happen, and we need to continue to make sure that the fence is strong around us, right? Around the fence of our heart. So he does that. He sends them, and then you see Jesus getting a little tired. Jesus has been going all over the place. He's tired, and he just wants a little time with the 12. He wants time with the 12 disciples, and he's like, guys, I'm a little tired. And so what happens when he's a little tired? 5,000 men find him. And I mean, that's a lot of men. If you think about that, they say it, and they didn't count the women and the kids. That was part of Jesus' problem was like, there was like second citizens, women and children. But the reality is that there's probably like 15,000 people in there at least, and if church is anything like today, there's like more like 25,000 people in there. But there's a lot of people. And now Jesus, when he wanted to be alone with his disciples, now he's dealing with a multitude of people. But this is what I see here. He's welcoming to all. Jesus constantly displays the heart of the Father. He loves to give good gifts to his kids. And the amazing thing that you see here is that your hunger really moves the heart of God. These people were coming hungry for God. They were hungry for connection with God. They realized that Jesus was different than anybody else they've ever heard. And they were desperate for that reality. Even if they didn't fully understood yet who Jesus was, some of them probably did. But there was something in their spirit who was so hungry for who he was. And that moved the heart of God. Verse 11, it says that he graciously welcomed them all, taught them more about God's kingdom realm. This is the Passion Translation. And he healed all who were sick. I just want to say something amazing here. This is what people should say about the church, that we welcome all. And he healed all who were sick. Why? Because there's no mixture in him. So he operates freely out of the authority that has been given to him. There's nothing to block his authority. He can just heal all. Now, I love that the disciples, they're like, Jesus, there's nothing to eat. This is a lot of people. It's going to take all the farms from around here and every place. We got to send these people away. Everybody's hungry. It's late. What are we going to do? And that's when you see, like, these people, there's families there. They're like, guys, we don't care if we're having dinner tonight. We are listening to Jesus tonight. This is better than anything else. I love that. That was the hunger there. And then Jesus, they bring the loaves of bread and the little fish. And Jesus tells them, hey, make groups of 50. Sometimes when God tells you something, it makes absolutely no sense, right? You have 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish, and then Jesus responds, make groups of 50. When God gives you a strategy, the strategy is for you. And many times, he just wants to see if you're actually going to obey. If God tells you to do groups of 12, and then have those groups of 12 do groups of 12s or whatever, that's the strategy of God for you. But the problem is that we think that if something works somewhere in Colombia, hey, let's do this all over the place, and it probably doesn't work. Why? Because God didn't tell us all to do groups of 12. Right here, he told me just to do groups of 50. But if we just start doing groups of 50 just for fun, it's not going to work. It's just like, are you listening to what the Father's saying? Like, are you connected? Because at the end of the day, it's about your connection. So, but they listen, and then he just thanks the Father for the food. You know what? Gratitude and obedience is always going to open the realm of the supernatural in your life. If you live in that, you're going to walk in the supernatural. You're going to have an open heaven in your life, and that's what you want, because you were made for that. Okay. Then we know they even had 12 baskets full. The story is crazy. I love Jesus. He's amazing. Verse 23. Later on, Jesus said to all his followers, if you truly desire to be my disciple, you must disown your life completely, embrace my cross as your own, and surrender to my ways. For if you choose self-sacrifice, giving up your lives for my glory, you will embark on a discovery of more and more of true life. But if you choose to keep your lives for yourselves, you will lose that you try to keep. I love this. Sometimes when I see people who have so many boundaries that they can't help anybody, it drives me a little bit crazy. And I know that we're supposed to have healthy lives and all that stuff, but I would rather be a little tired than a little entitled. Just because when I look at the life of Jesus, he's like, what? He was tired. He's like, what? Yeah, what, like 20,000 people here? Okay. She says, oh my gosh. But his heart was moving out of love and compassion. He's like, I'm going to tell you some of the most precious things to my heart. I'm going to tell you about the kingdom. and I'm going to heal you all. That's who Jesus is. Verse 25 says, even if you gain all the wealth and power of this world, everything that it could offer you, right? Even if you make America great again, yet lost your soul in the process, what good is that? Right? And so the reason I say that phrase is because half of this room likes that phrase and half of the room hates that phrase. And so, this is what I want to tell you with this. For some of you, America 20 years ago was awesome. It was the promised land. And for some of you, it was horrible. And so, but the reality is that if you realize who Jesus is, you know that he loves this nation. Not just this nation, he loves every nation, right? His heart is for the world. He's willing to give everything. And he wants us to go from glory to glory. And so we need to stop, like things are not going to be like they were before. Things, they should be better. Like his heart, his desire is that we go forward, right? He has way better plans than what anything that has happened in the past here. Like he wants to do a new thing, a beautiful thing. He wants to display his glory and his goodness through our lives in this nation. And if there's corruption, and there's things, that's what I'm saying, like my prayer is that the fear of the Lord hits this nation again. Because I do want God to clean house. I don't, and that's what I'm saying, like I don't know how people sleep at night sometimes. If I hear some of the things that I'm hearing are true, I'm like, how do people sleep at night? And so, but if the fear of the Lord hits this land, conviction comes, repentance comes. You know what? I grew up defending this country because growing up in Ecuador, and I didn't like math. So I decided to focus on social studies. Right? And so all my classes of sociology and philosophy, and all my teachers were hardcore anti the U.S., right? And because I was the one Christian in my school, it was my job to defend this country. And so, because I'm like the only Christian, and I'm defending the Christian country, right? Like this is my job to defend this country. And so I didn't go that well, Sometimes I felt like I was winning, but I don't know if anybody else felt that way. But you know what? Sometimes God, he has no problem. Sometimes we feel like we need to defend something, but at the end of the day, like there's things that are more important to him. And he can do things in a new way. We hang on some things that are not that important. I did some funny things growing up that drove my dad crazy a little bit sometimes. But I was a part of the worship team for like a year, and I played the percussions. But I never play on Sundays because I never wear a tie. And that was one of the requirements, And I was like, I'm just not gonna do it. And I just love the practices. I was like, worship is worship. I don't have to be there on Sunday on the front. So I just love the practices, and I love being with the worship team, and this is fun, So I was not worried about it. But my dad and the worship leader were always, can you just put a tire, please, But I just didn't, and I didn't feel conviction about the tie. So I was like, I think I'm cool with this. And so, but you know what? God, he was worried at the fact that I didn't feel like I was good enough. That was the one thing that he actually really cared about during that season of my life, But many times as Christians, we're worried about the tithe, and we don't see what the deeper problem, what the deeper issue is. And God wants to go after the heart. He wants to heal those deep places inside of us. Okay, guys, this is one of my favorite parts of the Bible here. Verse 28. 8 days later, Jesus took Peter, Jacob, and John. This is the Passion Translation. They changed James' name to Jacob. And one of the reasons is because there's a debate about that. They believe that the translation was wrong, and it's actually Jacob. So who knows, guys? But you know what? Those things, I don't think it really matters. But so just in case you were wondering, like, why is Jacob in there? Okay. So they hide this mountain. They went to the mountain to pray. As he prayed, his face began to glow his face began to glow until it was a blinding glory streaming from him. His entire body was illuminated with a radiant glory. His brightness became so intense that it made his clothing blinding white, like multiple flashes of lightning. All at once, two men appearing in a glorious splendor, Moses and Elijah. They spoke with Jesus about his son's departure from this world and the things that he was destined to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had become very drowsy, but they became fully awake when they saw the glory and splendor of Jesus standing there and the two men with him. We have to have the fear of the Lord surrounding our heart, because God wants to show with his glory. And when his glory shows up in your heart, all the drowsiness, all the places who are asleep, all the places who are not alert, the places that we didn't know were supposed to be awakened inside of us, they wake up when his presence is there, when his glory is there. I love that. I kind of love that too, that Peter, the Bible kind of says like, yeah, Peter didn't know what he was talking about, but he just goes like, Jesus, we can build a house for Moses, one for you, one from Elijah, and then this cloud shows up, right? Like right away, like Peter. Let me see. Well, verse 34, while Peter was still speaking, a radiant cloud of glory formed about them and overshadowed them. As the glory cloud enveloped them, they were struck with fear. Then the voice of God thundered from within the cloud. This is my son, my beloved one. Listen carefully to all he has to say. When the thunderous voice faded away and the cloud disappeared, Jesus was standing there alone. Peter, Jacob, and John were speechless and awestruck, but they didn't say a word to anyone about what they have seen. Can you imagine this moment? Peter is funny. I love Peter. But even in the glorious moment, right? Glory of God, it's easy to miss it. You can get an idea that you just think is just, man, that was the best idea I've ever had, and God is like, no, it's not. It's not. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the cloud right now, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna bring a little bit of that fear of the Lord, just to help you be in the right spot. Isn't that awesome that He does that? You want the fear of God. Do you want the fear of God in your life? We need it. It's saved my life. Like, you want the fear of God in your life. It's like if you have an argument with your wife, you don't want to go to bed and go to sleep like that. There's that conviction in you that goes, we need to work this out. This is not right. It's not right to go to bed angry at each other, right? I saw some wives just look at their husbands real fast right there. Okay, well, yeah, so we want to live with that, with conviction. So Jesus, I love that, sometimes He doesn't even have to rebuke Peter. He's just like, he's sweet. Peter's sweet. Want to build a house for the three of us. Okay, and then you see that this guy comes with this kid who's demon possessed, and the disciples couldn't set him free. In this desperate moment, they tried to deliver this kid. In verse 40 it says, I beg your disciples to drive it out of him, but they didn't have enough power to do it. And Jesus responds in verse 41. And I'm just going to jump to the important part. It says here, your lives are twisted with lies that have turned you away from doing what is right. What is He saying? The mixture in you didn't allow you to operate out of the authority that I already gave in you. Because He already gave them all the authority to cast all the demons and heal the sick, but because they had this mixture inside of them, they couldn't operate out of that place. when you allow mixture in our hearts, we lose the ability to walk in the authority that God gives us. So amazing things are happening. Elijah's showing up. Kid gets delivered. Jesus delivers the kid. And then the disciples in verse 36 just decide to argue about something interesting. The disciples began to argue and became preoccupied over who will be the greatest one among them. These guys are awesome. I love the disciples. I like to sometimes I like to picture the arguments, and I just wondering, who's there, who's probably the most talkative there, and who's trying to make a point. I'm thinking probably John, probably Peter. Probably the ones who felt closer to Jesus. They're trying to make a point, so John is like, guys, I don't want to make this obvious, but the 12 of us, and don't take this the wrong way, guys, because the 12 of us, we're like pretty much the most amazing guys ever because he picked us. So we're like the 12 apostles, like we're it. But just in case you were wondering, I'm his favorite because I get to lay my head on his chest. I'm pretty much the best thing that ever happened to Jesus. Pretty much. If he had a little bit of LA in him, they'd probably say that. Oh. Okay, guys, I'm going to skate with this table right here. No, don't do it. Don't do it. There we go. And so, and I can see him probably like Peter trying to defend himself, and he's like, just picturing Peter jump probably like, Peter, you've cast a few times. You're definitely not the favorite. Just watching his personality. And then Peter, I was picturing Peter saying like something like, hey, wait. I am definitely awesomer than that because I had a vision that I walk on water. It's like, wait, it wasn't a vision. I did walk on water. Guys, it wasn't a vision. I forgot. I mean, I just so many visions right now. I mean, I cannot get Elijah out of my head from the last time I saw him. It's just crazy, right? It's crazy. So supernatural. Dude, his disciples, they're just awesome. Verse 47 says, fully aware of their innermost thoughts, Jesus called a little child to his side and said to them, if you tenderly care for this little child on my behalf, you are tenderly caring for me. And if you care for me, you are honoring my Father who sent me. For the one who is least important in your eyes is actually the most important. The most important one of all. I mean, Jesus is the boss. Such a boss, right? That is such a boss. He knows their thoughts, that he knows what they're talking about. He knows the fight that's going on. And he just brings it down to, guys, my love for you is not because you follow me. It's not because when I met you, when you were in your mother's womb, my heart was fully for you. My love was perfect for you before you did anything. So he picks this kid who in their culture still doesn't have a lot of value, and his kid hasn't done anything for Jesus, and he says, if you take care of this kid, if you love this kid, you're taking care of me, you're loving me. Why are we talking about foster care here? Because of this. Because it's are we really going to follow him, or are we going to talk about wanting to follow him? Are we willing to be uncomfortable? Are we willing to pay a price to be about our Father's business, to love the things that he loves? It is so worth it. You know what? Being uncomfortable in the will of God. If you keep your heart tender if you let the fear of God surround your heart, you will find a deeper layer of His love and His passion for you. It's going to be amazing. And if you don't choose to be uncomfortable and just live your life the way you want to, uncomfort is going to come. But it's going to be outside of His will. And it's not going to be fun. I can promise you that. You know, He's merciful. He'll bring you back around and all of that. But guys, we don't want to waste time. This thing wants me to talk. I'm like, I'm talking right, but I'm not supposed to talk in here. What happened? So, that's a different message. Okay, we're back. So, when Jesus brings that whole child thing, you know, I can picture John just being like, okay, guys, this got really awkward after all the things I said about being the best thing that happened to Jesus. So Jesus, by the way, there's this guy like casting demons and doing stuff like that. And he's not one of your followers. He's not following you like we follow you. So we told him not to do it anymore. You know, so John's like trying to like, hey, guys, let's talk about something else, right? And then, yeah, it says verse 39. The disciple John said, Master, we found somebody who was casting out demons using your name, and we tried to stop him because he doesn't follow you like we do. You know, when we see people that follow Jesus in a different way, sometimes we decide that it's time for the gloves to come out. And then Jesus is like, hey guys, take it easy. He responds, you shouldn't have hidden him, for anyone who is not against you is your friend. Yeah, I love Jesus. Don't you love Jesus? So, there's another part here that's kind of crazy. So Jesus knows that he needs to go to Jerusalem and to fulfill some of the things, right, that he's supposed to do. And the disciples, they're like, this is serious. We saw the open heavens. He needs to go to Jerusalem. And Jesus sends some messengers. But the Samaritans are angry because he's going to go worship in Jerusalem. And then, you know, there's like this thing happening. Samaritans are not happy, so they don't want Jesus to go through their town. And so the disciples are like, when the disciples, Jacob and John, realized what was happening, they came to Jesus and said, Lord, if you want to, you could command fire to fall down from heaven, just like Elijah did, and destroy all these wicked people. Jesus rebuked them sharply, saying, don't you realize what comes from your hearts when you say that? For the Son of Man did not come to destroy life, but to bring life to the earth. Now, I'm going to tell you something. The disciples have been watching Jesus love the Samaritan people in a way that is not normal. But they still had some mixture in there about how they felt about the Samaritans. You know, they were still missing some understanding. And when you don't fully get the heart of God for a group of people, it is easy to start going on let's call it in. Come on, Holy Spirit, send the fire, you know. It's like, it's easy to go there because our hearts are not burning with the heart of God for his people. And he said that he came to the world because he loved the world. He wanted to restore the world. And more than ever in this time, we need to come back to a place where we love the world. The world that we don't understand, we need to love it. You know? And the amazing thing is, as long as you keep the fear of God in your life, you don't have to worry about becoming like the world. If you're protecting your connection with God, you don't have to worry. If that's your priority, if that's your number one, you don't have to worry. You can love it. Recently, I had this thought, and I wasn't thinking about Jennifer just in case. But my thought was, that person doesn't deserve my love. But it was somebody that it was close enough that I should never have that thought. And my first thought was like, I really hope that was the devil, because if that's my own thought, that's a horrible, horrible thought to have. And I literally went and said, God, I am so sorry. Because right when the thought came, I felt the Holy Spirit come at the same time. And it's like, his love for us is so amazing and unconditional. He's loved us through all of it. His love never changes. And, we cannot start just being all like, oh, that person doesn't deserve my love. Those thoughts. Every time something like that comes in my heart, I'm like, God, like, will you change me? Will you let me feel like you feel? Will you give me grace? I want to move out of your grace. And I notice that it's easy to operate out of the wrong spirit sometimes if we don't have his heart. Like these guys, they're like, they got spanked like 20 times right before, but they're still like, operate out of the wrong spirit. It's like, you will think they'll be a little more careful, like, guys, are we thinking this one right? He's all about love, but yeah, let's send fire. This seems appropriate right now. I mean, it's crazy. And God just with love and kindness constantly keeps speaking into their lives. Look at all the things that they got to do later on. I mean, there's a point where you're just like, you're transformed by the example of his love. And you're supposed to bring that same transformation to the world around you. There's a cost to follow him, but it's so worth it. There is a way bigger cost if you don't follow him. The price is way bigger and it's horrible. You don't want to go that way. Might as well let's pay the cost to follow him. And many times the things that hold us back are good things. Later on you see Jesus saying like, hey, why don't you follow me? Oh, I'm going to wait until my dad dies. And then after I bury my dad, then I'll follow you. And then it's like, yeah, I'll follow you, but I have to go say bye to my family. And it seemed like really good things. And when you see the heart of Jesus, you know that he's all about family. Right? We're never going to sacrifice family for ministry. Why? Because if we're going after connection with God, you're going to realize you really have to love your wife well. You really have to love your husband well. You have to love your kids well. You have to love the people that God's putting around you well, because he's all about family. So the point here is not about, I'm so holy, me and God, everybody. I don't have to think about anybody else. No, that's not what's happening here, right? He's just saying like, am I really the number one? Are you truly, am I it? Are you willing to follow me wherever I go? Even if there's no place for me to lay my head, will you follow me? Is anybody willing to follow him? To pay a price? To see his kingdom realm, so that may all feel welcome in his house. That all may be healed because of what he already did for us. Will you stand with me? What does it look like to really pick up our cross? We've been talking a lot about how important it is to give every area of your life to God. And I want to say something is, if you surrender your life to him, you're saying, God, I'm every part of me, it's open for your correction. My brain, my heart, my emotions, every part of me. But you may say, well, I was pretty much came out of the womb thinking like this, and so I just believe this my whole life. It doesn't matter, right? Are you really surrendering every part of your mind, every part of your heart to him? There shouldn't be a place that you're like, I got this right here. We got this one. Let's work on this one, Jesus. I really like to work on this one. No, it doesn't work like that. When you live surrender with him, you're like, I'm an open book, God. Pick the page. Do you want to rewrite something? Do you want to highlight something? What are you doing in me? Are you willing to be an open book? If you are, I want you to let's just raise our hands and just say, God, I am truly yours. however you want to speak to me, in whatever area of my life you want to speak to me, God. I'm willing. I'm willing to hear what you have to say, God. God, we trust you. Jesus, you're so good. God, will you get rid of any mixture that is blocking us from walking out of a place of the authority that we should be walking out? And many times when I pray for something and it's not working and it feels like it should work, I just constantly am asking God, God, is there anything? Is there something? Is there any mixture in me? Is there something I'm believing that is not right? Am I praying the right prayers? What's important to you right now, God? I wanna see you. I wanna find you, God. And if you've never had a heart for certain things that you realize, oh, God really cares about that, it's a great opportunity to say, God, will you show me how to care for that? Because I just try to pretend and kind of try to ignore it because it feels kind of painful to care about that. But if you know that the Father cares about it and you've been pushing it away, just tell him if you're willing to care with him. If there's a group of people that you're having a hard time loving, I told you this. Even when I didn't want to love the church, I loved the church, but there was a time that it was hard for me to love the church. And God had to heal my heart for that. God, if I close my heart to friends or people, just because I disagree with something, God, will you just heal my heart? I want peace to be the atmosphere of my heart. Your perfect peace. I want your truth, God. So I want to encourage you. Just go and take time reading about the life of Jesus. Just watch how he responds over and over again. Every time I just go like, God is so good. He's definitely better than what I thought he was. He keeps getting better and better. It's amazing how he keeps getting better. Every time there's like a new side of him that is so cool. For eternity, we get to be amazed by who he is. Amen.